to see Kalaxz in contention to get through to Grandmasters, because I believe for the vast majority of last year, he was pretty much tied with countryman Swids in terms of points, both very, very high indeed in the amount of points. In the end, Swids did end up getting the spot in Grandmasters, but Kalaxz, I think, is such a strong player and definitely deserves his spot. As we can see with his pretty strong deck-building decisions, going with this mage with the Luna's Pocket Galaxy has done very well against the field of vastly warriors that we've seen so far. But here in top 8, with 5 out of 8 of the players bringing mage, he needs to have a little bit more to actually deal with the mage mirror rather than the anti-warrior tech. And it doesn't look like he's got all too much that is specifically designed to take on the mages.
Yeah, I think the only mage player that has direct mage tech, ironically enough, is Tom60229. Right? The one player that he probably does not want to play against in terms of the mage mirror. Having things like that polymorph, and the questing is...
Mage mirrors can get pretty grindy if they're not a blowout victory right at the start, and we did see Possessi going on to take the win in that matchup. But here, an entirely different kettle of fish, with Tom having a strong anti-mage side deck that he can switch to after this first game. For game 1, however, he has to make do with what he's got. But what he's got is pretty good with this starting hand, I would say, and being on the coin as well. This is none too shabby.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a pretty decent start here, and I think that just by having the coin, you feel already pretty good.
Yeah.
Going second gives you that extra card, getting that extra spell. It's not very common for that to be the case. A lot of times, in strategy games in general, going first tends to give you the advantage because you're the one taking initiative. Not necessarily the case in such a volatile back and forth like Cyclone Mage Mirrors.
And not quite an explosive start, or it's looking to be, as we've seen in some of the other mage matchups with Tom not having access to an early mountain giant. It looks like he'll be focusing much more heavily on a kind of mid-rangey, aggressive-ish game plan that these mage decks so often do fall into with an early apprentice and Mana Cyclone. But it doesn't really have the support for that either, weirdly enough, with no cheap spells to go in combination with the Mana Cyclone outside of the coin, obviously. He's going to be unable to actually develop that much and is kind of just at the mercy of this Banana Buffoon.
Yeah, Banana Buffoon Sorcerer's Apprentice dynamic is pretty interesting, given that the bananas often are so important to keep your hand size high, but at the same time, it's a pretty valuable tempo tool at the same time. Look at this play from Tom. He's going to Conjurer's Calling his Sorcerer's Apprentice. He gets Archmage Arugel, which is a legendary that copies whatever minions you draw. And then he gets... the
Mana Reservoir.
Yes, which is a +1 spell damage minion.
I guess now he's just wondering whether he wants to coin out the Mana Cyclone. I imagine that he will end up doing so. It was really just looking at breakpoints of mana. Does he want to go Ziliax next turn? And I don't think it was all too pressing. So I think I like getting the couple of spells while he can, because 2 as it currently stands is about as good as he's going to get.
Yeah, I kind of like seeing Tom like this, It's been a while since I feel like I see Tom really locked in. Before, I feel like, in the past year or two when Tom was kind of like still competing, but it felt like he already had climbed that peak of the mountain. He was more laying back and just kind of like taking it easy and just doing quick mental math, but now he's like locked in and engaged. And I feel like that's really scary, just because, we all know how good Tom can be. He's one of the most consistent players. In fact, even going back to his World Championship year, there's people compiling data of like every region's historical performance across ladder and all this stuff, and Tom was like 3 standard deviations above the second-ranked player.
Really?
He was that much ahead of everybody over a course of 4 or 5 years.
That's pretty sick.
And it's like, no wonder this guy like dominated Impact for so long.
And I'm glad we're seeing that. It's a similar story not only to Tom, but also to Nightria, where when he actually really knuckles down with Hearthstone, he can do some miraculous stuff.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of really nice, miraculous stuff, 0 mana spells and 0 mana tempo cards. We kind of talked about this exact dynamic. Banana Buffoon using it for tempo. I mean, Kalaxz does strand his early game, or his Mountain Giant hand for the early game. But, what's important is him trying to make sure that Tom can't fight back efficiently. And that's what makes it more difficult to handle. Tom's best move is once again to do the Conjurer's Calling to fight back for the tempo. Like, everything else is too expensive, but I don't know if he's going to go for that.
It feels just so miserable to be going for that. I think when we have Like, when it's the second half of a twin spell and he has Giants, Rabble Bouncers in hand, it's just too passive. Like, it gets cleared up on board, and then he's just miles behind.
Now, the question for Kalaxz is he going to just pressure or just leave the 0/6 onto the board? Because that Blast Wave actually gives plus the Blast Wave does 3 damage now,
right, yeah.
which actually incidentally kills the Banana Buffoon. That hero power is if Kalaxz chooses to kill the Mana Reservoir, and then he's able to still collect only 1 spell. I think if I'm Kalaxz, I favor the tempo here. I kind of want Twilight Drake onto the board, even though it's only a 4/6. I feel like having it on the board is really important. Or do you feel like it's better to draw cards here?
I think the Arcane Intellect here is fantastic. Like, this hand as it currently stands is not that good. If Tom does anything even mildly powerful, you need to find something strong, either to react with or ideally to go with first. And Mana Cyclone, at the moment, may just be that. Mirror Image Mana Cyclone is not bad.
Okay. Yeah, just getting some semblance of board, which actually incidentally plays directly into the Blast Wave.
That's fair.
I mean, that's not something that you can reasonably justify playing around all the time, especially with 2 spells being created off the Blast Wave. This is devastating, though. Come on. Oh, my goodness. And the polymorph. Are you kidding me?
All the pressure that Kalaxz had built up over those turns, his entire advantage just thrown out the window.
Yeah. I mean, I was using caster vision to kind of talk about this, and I feel like I feel for Kalaxz in that spot. That
one
is
hurts.
brutal.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Tom capitalizes on this is really the only thing he has to consider here, because if he does go for, say, a Mountain Giant of his own instead of polymorphing, he could, from his position, think he's under threat of, Khadgar Mirror Image, and because of that, he's thinking, all right, let's just get this out the way before any kind of nonsense can occur, and next turn, he is going to hop off.
Yes, he has Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling himself, at the very least. Kalaxz has another Mountain Giant. So at least he's playing threats, but it's kind of like what you were saying before. His hand is still looking fairly weak.
Yeah. And I think he's gone about it mostly the right way. You know, he was digging for the power cards like Conjurer's Calling, maybe even another Frost Nova if he wanted to go for some kind of just an aggro state where he tries to burst his opponent down while freezing the board. But he just hasn't found the cards he was looking for. Like, I mean, Mountain Giant is fine here, but there's none of the cards that go with it, like the Khadgar or the Conjurer's Calling.
What do you think about tempoing out things like Archmage Antonidas?
I think that might be where we're at.
Because your opponent doesn't really play a lot of removal spells. I mean, I'm looking through Tom's deck list. I mean, he's not playing anything that's naturally generated, and he also did use 2 spells that were created through Mana Cyclone.
Wow.
As well as the Blast Wave.
I think it was very tempting. I think the reason why Kalaxz is saving the Archmage Antonidas is very possibly for a turn 10 Antonidas into Frost Nova in order to try and go for a burst plan at that point. I'm not sure if he will even make it there as it currently stands. Or maybe he was setting up for Antonidas Mirror Image on this turn.
Yeah, I mean, with a Frost Nova as well, his hand scales pretty well into 10 mana, so he can go for Archmage, Antonidas, and Frost Nova if he needs to, which ends up being a pretty important play if Tom ends up winning the board and he needs some Hail Mary attempts.
Yeah.
So then, in Kalax's mind, how does he diffuse this situation, or does he even acknowledge it? I mean, it seems like he's just going to be fighting behind on board. And if he uses a freeze here, and Tom uses a freeze, then he's really in trouble.
Right, and the problem is for Kalaxz is that he knows that there is a Conjurer's Calling in hand because for the first half of it has already been used. If he didn't know that, he could just pray that Tom's hand was absolutely dreadful and go for Antonidas Mirror Image, push face, and try and get some kind of a cheese lethal. But I think he knows that that's just not really going to happen. Spellbinder's pretty spicy, though. As it currently stands, that would divert the 1 copy of Conjurer's Calling.
That is true. Unfortunately, playing the Spellbender means he wouldn't be able to get this down.
Yeah.
So I think he just wants to get the best possible board.
I love pushing face though. I think no matter what Kalaxz does here, he can't afford to be trading in this instance. He needs to try and set up for, like I said, Antonidas Frostnova on turn 10 and try and push for a lethal.
I'm looking for some way to Tom to swing the board even more, utilizing like a very cheap Sea Giant, perhaps even putting Rabble Bouncer in the way.
Yeah.
Your opponent still hasn't used any Frost Nova. They're trying to use Mirror Image to stall. I was thinking for Tom, like if you wanted to use Ziliax to get through the 0-2 pretty efficiently, it seems like a nice logical conclusion. And I don't feel like Rabble Bouncer is better than Sea Giant, so I agree with this. Now, would you trade into the Sea Giant, or would you trade into the Giant, or are you just ignoring it and going face?
Like, Kalax's play of going face there did set off quite a lot of alarm bells, I think, because it makes you afraid of freeze effects. He could just be going for a double Frost Nova kind of play to push you out of the game. So I think trading here, given that Tom is very likely ahead on resources, is a very reasonable way to go about it.
And the Conjure
That's
Calling
big,
pickup.
though. That's very big.
Yes, although 10 mana, the minions in the 10 mana slot are a lot less reliable than the Mountain Giant slot at 12.
That's fair.
So, I mean, it could range anything to have 4 12s to just basically creating more 8/8s.
Yeah.
And then you have all the way up to Deathwing, which is 12/12 power level, which is pretty good.
Yeah, Deathwing's what you're looking for. Hakar is generally what you're not looking for. In some fringe instances, it can be pretty good. But I think I like this from Kalaxz. It looks like he's setting up for a double Conjurer's Calling and very possibly a Frost Nova as well. That's pretty bad, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking for the big, powerful 10 drops. Finds another Sea Giant and Nazari. That's not what he's looking for at all.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness!
Ooh. Tom now can go for what? Khadgar, Conjurer's Calling, Frost Nova. I mean, you just do it, right?
Yes.
You just do it.
That feels like an overwhelming board position to get past. And pretty much the ideal setup of having Grave Horrors and Mountain Giants just to make sure you get all that power in.
Yeah.
No Frost Nova. Even more restraint from Tom. He says that I can handle it even if you freeze my board, which he is accurate on.
Yeah.
Even if Kalaxz froze the board, he'd be okay. And it's important because we talked about this throughout the weekend multiple times. It's the Frost Nova battles. Whoever has the last say, very similar to Ice Block, whoever can restrain from using it will be the one in the advantage because they get to have the final attack and you get frozen.
And this from Tom shows fantastic restraint. As you were pointing out, he can clear off all the taunts in play, but then if he doesn't have a freeze of his own, Kalaxz is still pretty decisively dead.
What to do?
So what can he do instead? If he Flame Strikes and Frostbolts, is that enough to just even survive?
Yeah, I was looking if he could do any kind of Luna's Pocket Galaxy play, and then next turn pray he draws Arcane Intellect into the God draws, but I think that's just so unlikely to happen.
So I think he has to Frostbolt one minion and then trade into this other Grave Horror. Oh, whoa. Now I'm starting to see the brilliance of Tom's ping here, actually.
Yeah.
Because now there's no convenient trade for Kalaxz to have afterwards, and he has that free mana.
It effectively dealt so much damage.
Yeah. Nicely done there by Tom.
He is somewhat running out of pressure, though, as it currently stands, and if he can't find anything big off the Arcane Intellect, the amount of damage is starting to just peter out.
Oh, boy. That's a pretty solid one.
Somebody order a bomb.
Forgoes it. Looks like he wants instead.
Wow.
Generate more resources. Mirror Entity is
surprising.
interesting. Mirror Entity is really interesting because Kalaxz has played a lot of his cheap minions. He's played his Sorcerer's Apprentices. He's played a Banana Buffoon. And I mean, even if your opponent plays like Luna, you're not too mad at it because you can just catch up with them in resource count as well. Counterspell and Frost Nova. This is really aggressive play, and
Wow.
he has a second Frost Nova, so I think in his mind he's making a victory push.
Yeah, I think this is just realizing that his minions in play are really, really valuable.
And Kalaxz has nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just has to play Antonidas, Elemental Evocation, and Ping. That just doesn't win, though. Maybe he has to move towards Antonidas and Frost Nova is his only chance.
What to do?
That doesn't win either.
Right. So he knows he's going to hero power. With his remaining mana, first of all, he has to figure out the secret.
Right.
And the hero power doesn't tell him anything. If he plays a powerful minion like Antonidas and then tries to go for a fireball, he might just get counter-lethal just by giving his opponent the ability to kill him.
Yeah.
So he can test the secret as well
He's
with
in-
evocation.
He's in such a bad spot, though. Like, he has to be taking risks. He can't really afford to play around anything, I don't think.
It's out on me.
Luna's Pocket Galaxy. 11 showing. Tom has 13-14 to the Banana Buffoons.
I don't know if there's any one-mana minions he can get off the top that would save him here. It's like it pretty much has to be Frost Nova, I think, to have a chance with Antonidas.
There's the possibility that Luna comes out and it's just like this infinite chain
Oh, yeah.
of really
Okay.
cheap stuff.
What to do?
But the problem is Kalaxz would have to play Antonidas also, which means his
Right.
mana is restricted. So his best draw is actually Arcane Intellect into Luna into a bunch of other cheap stuff.
Okay.
Yes. Because he needs that extra card to be cheaper.
Yeah.
What to do?
I mean, it's possible. You know, he needs to be playing to these kind of fringe outs in this situation when he has pretty much nothing he can play without just dying.
Yeah, I agree. Smart play from Tom, trading into the dragon.
Yeah, just in case.
Yep. I mean, Kalaxz only has used one Conjurer's Calling. There are weirder things that's happened. And that's not going to be it. Kalaxz with his double dragon hand. Going to concede. Tom60229 takes the...
Two shouts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nyria was the same thing, too.
True.
And then having those punch on you guys later. Because 8th place is guaranteed $10,000. With each series win, you go up $2,000. You go from 10 to 12 to 14 to 16. That's 5th through 8th.
Yep.
And then 4th is 20K, 3rd is 30K, 2nd is 50K, and 1st place is $100,000. As much money as it was for Firebrand Osaka to win the World Championships just a few years ago.
All thanks to the, partially thanks to the Masters Tour bundle.
Oh yeah, big shout out to the fans.
Yep.
You all made it possible. All right, so Kalaxz, game number 2. He's on the coin this time.
Oh, and he's got a very nice hand to be going in combination
Yes.
with the coin.
He's got the dream trio of Khadgar, Mountain Giant, and the Conjurer's Calling.
Kalaxz just sitting there thinking, me and the boys, ready to crush Tom.
Yeah. That would be actually pretty funny if you made that meme.
I know.
We need. Don't you need a 4th member though to make it officially the boys?
He's the 4th member.
Oh, because you make 2 of them, right?
Well, no, Kalaxz is one of the boys, and Khadgar Giant and Conjurer's Calling is also a boy.
Yeah. I was thinking, no, you do that, or like maybe do Mountain Giant and Graveheart.
Oh, yeah, me and the boys.
Right.
That's pretty good. I'll see what I can whip up after this.
I can see Derek already. His eyes light up. He's been beaten down by the mage and the warrior mirrors, but when you talk about memes, he is excited. Good early game here for Kalaxz. Just stave off the pressure. You know, Sorcerer's Apprentice denied. Questing Adventure denied.
Yeah,
Another
very
Questing
important.
Adventure though.
I mean, we saw earlier with Tom up against Dog, where Dog, unable to kill off the questing adventure at the start, the game just completely flew out of his control. Like he had absolutely no chance to win the game after the questing survived.
Yeah, I think that there's no point in going to the magic trick unless you can guarantee the evocation. Even then, you probably still want to do it with the Questing Adventure.
Yeah.
There is the... it's been a while since we made really bad Kasha jokes like, oh, he has lethal because he has magic trick and Questing Adventure. I'm sure it's been done a few times, but at least I haven't yet.
You underestimate my power of how bad I am as a caster.
That's right. You've concentrated all of the Infinity Stones of memes into your gauntlet. Oh, man.
Yeah. And what did it cost? My career.
Oh, man. Kalaxz, he's got 7 cards in hand, so the Giant costs 5. Next turn, he could play the Giant.
It's such a tough decision spot. Does he go Coin Luna's Pocket Galaxy for the power of some potential 1-cost high-power minions? Or does he go for the Giant Conjurer's Calling Khadgar a little bit earlier?
Right. I mean, he's drawn so much of the heavy cards that he
Right.
wants to discount.
He's such a difficult decision.
Right. And
Give me a quest.
it's only going to get a little bit trickier, too, because now Tom goes for this magic trick. Arcane Missiles, Evocation, Mana Cyclone, Kalaxz uncomfortable to say the least. The only way to deal with this questing adventure is a Conjurer's Call.
Right. Which he definitely does not want to do, but he may be forced into it, as that is a pretty good selection of spells off of a Mana Cyclone.
Quality stuff. Okay, he has 2 Conjurer's Callings now.
I think he has to do it.
Yeah. And the silly thing is...
Oh! What?
Tom is even laughing.
What?
When you mess with the bull, you get the horns. That's what you get for going against the world champ. You dare challenge him?
This is Tom and the boys now. He's saying, you know what? You think you've got it.
Wow. Kalaxz is stunned. He's like, I don't know what to... Do I play another card?
What
Do
does
I
he
just
do?
concede? Do I take my headset off and ask Tom very politely to have mercy?
Imagine how he must be feeling. He's finally scraped through the Swiss record. He gets to this point, and this happens to him.
Yeah, I mean, Tom is favored in the Mage Mirror because of these cards.
Yes,
though.
it's true.
Because of that, it's force plays. And also, he has Polymorph, even if Kalaxz just played a threat. But it's just, this is all icing on the cake.
Man.
Tom is riding this gravy train all the way to the Vegas buffets.
Oh!
Okay.
That's the card.
Yeah.
That's the card that Kalaxz needed to get back in this game.
Yes, he has Khadgar, Mountain Giant, Conjurer's Calling. That is the nuts.
We must band together.
Look at what both these players are doing. This game is so powerful.
And the Sea Giant.
Oh!
I forgot the Sea Giant goes down to 1.
He's literally just threatening lethal next turn. But he didn't get any taunts. Is he dead?
Uh-oh. Oh my gosh, hold on. 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 Fireball is 7, so 17.
He's dead.
18, 9.
What?
He just kills him because he didn't get any taunts.
What? He's literally just dead. He has the amount of mana to cast the spells to buff the questing
He
adventurer.
just has to go Fireball face.
Oh my god.
Tom wins 2-0 over Kalaxz, and he can't believe it. Fireball, Sea Giant, all the damage that he could ever ask for, and the second questing adventure that came off of Conjurer's Calling.
Man, you have got to feel for Kalaxz after that.
Yeah! That was straight up cheese, bro!